With forestry came a bunch of new craftable items and new ways to make money, with some of them being insane GP per hour, but I also found 2 other money makers caused by a knock-on effect from the update itself. The first item I tried was the Clover insignia, which cost 5.6 million GP for 108 of them. But to make the actual item you also need emeralds, which were 48k, and balls of wool, another 7k. Total cost 5.6 million GP. The beauty about some of these methods is that they're also very good training methods. Usually you pay for good XP in the game, but because these are new, most players don't even know about them yet. Each one of these that you make creates 10 leprechaun charms each, and in 3 minutes and 51 seconds I've made 1080 in total. This also gave me an average XP per hour of 104,000 crafting XP. That's the equivalent of making lantern lenses with molten glass, which would normally cost you money to do because people pay for XP. Was it worth the 5.6 million GP that I put in? Well, I put the charms on the G and some sold for 1.3 million. I then had to take them out again and lower the price, and the rest sold for 5.65 million, making me 1.35 million GP in just 3 minutes and 51 seconds. Genuinely absolutely nuts. That works out at a staggering 20.8 million GP per hour, but I've got a feeling it won't stay that way forever. Next up was Ritual Mulch, which creates nature's offerings. These give you a 60 to 80% chance to receive another log when woodcutting. Because apparently if you put sloppy goop in a bag when you cut a tree, sometimes you get more logs from it. I wonder if Home Depot knows about this. Anyway, the mulch cost me 3.1 million GP, and the cheapest herb I could use for the secondary ingredient was another 178,000 GP, 3.3 million for 108 of each. Hoping for some amazing herb lore XP, I started making them, but got absolutely nothing. Not even a 1 XP drop. I guess that means these ones will always be profitable at least. All of those took me 3 minutes 53 seconds to make 4,320 nature offerings, and some sold for 3.52 million. I then had to lower the price. There was a lot of competition selling these, but they are from part 1, so they're not actually that new. Then I sold some for 1.23 mil, 508k, and then finally 613,000 GP, a total of 5.87 million. That profit was from a method that's been out for months, and it still made me 2.34 million GP in under 4 minutes, which is over 35 million GP per hour for an item that's not even new anymore. Surely it can't get any better than that, or can it? The next one I wanted to try was risky. Two-handed dragon axes have been on a little bit of a roller coaster since the release, starting at 1 million before going up to 3.4 million and then coming back down to 2 million. If I was going to try and beat the 35 million per hour, it's going to be a bit of a gamble. These can literally go up or down in price 100k in just a few minutes though, so I was risking a lot. I wanted to be fearless, so I took out 1 bill from the bank, then chickened out and bought 14. And they cost me 25.76 million for the handles and 1.05 million for the dragon axes. These ones are a little bit of a pain. You have to be near an anvil to make them, and there's no make X option, so it's one at a time, plus the animation is pretty slow. Just 14 axes took me almost 2 minutes to make, but the question is, would they be profitable? Total investment was 26.81 million GP, XP received just 5 per axe, but they sold for 27.02 million GP. That feels terrible after the first 2 methods, but actually it's still 6 million GP per hour, and axe handles fell in price about 50k from when I bought them to when I sold them. When buying items, I also noticed one of the secondary ingredients had gone up a ton in price, and I knew just where to get them quickly. At one point these were as high as 1.2k each, but some idiot mentioned it in the video. Anyway, they're now 500 GP each, so I teleported to Morton using the minigame's teleport and spoke to Razmir. He's currently afflicted, and when he's in this state you can't open his shop, but if you use a serum 208 potion on him, anytime you speak to him in the future it removes it completely and you can just view his shop as normal. He's got a stock of 1,000 limestones, but unfortunately the teleports here are 15,000 GP each, so to make this profitable I had to run to the bank. It was the only way. It may be slightly quicker looking at it now to use Barrow's teleport, but there's certainly not much in it. After 5 minutes and 15 seconds, I managed to buy 156, which sold for 77,000 profit after you take the cost of the staminers out, which is 750,000 GP per hour. The lowest so far, but probably the one that will still work the day that all or at least most of the other methods stop working. The next item I managed to get my hands on, because some of these took a long time to buy, was the Secateur blades. 473,000 was far cheaper than a lot of the other items, and if you're wondering why 108, because that's exactly 4 inventories worth. The secondary ingredient is also dirt cheap because it's iron bars, so those only cost me 18.9 thousand GP, a total investment of just 456k. These make the Secateur blades, which give you an extra leaf, and since Foresters rations phenomenally crashed in price, with leaves only used being to make them, they've also crashed. They do give you 32 crafting XP, which isn't terrible, and that works out at 60,000 XP per hour, but are they profitable? Well, I made 5,400 Secateur attachments in just 3 minutes and 32 seconds, and they sold for 529,000 GP. Even a cheap item like that gets you 1.25 million GP per hour, plus some crafting XP to boot, but we aren't here for a measly 1.25 million. The next item was definitely not cheap, and it's one of the new items. Trap disarmer blueprints I mean really Jagex, you couldn't think of anything more original? Anyway, these are part of the new poacher event, and 108 cost me 6.7 million. You also need to combine them with an iron bar and some bronze wire, which has a buy limit of just 15 every 4 hours, which kinda ruins this one to be honest, because at that rate you can make like less than 4 an hour. Rather than waiting, I just made some myself and priced them at the current GE prices, making the total cost of all items for this method 6.76 million. For the method you need 3 items to make it, plus a hammer, and you gotta be near an anvil, so it's a bit of a pain, but at least the massive XP drops make up for it. Some of these items give you good XP, some give you none, and others like to give you a terrible amount of XP. It's just so random, I don't know what the thought process behind it is. All of those took me 4 minutes and 50 seconds, and they all sold for 7.16 million, which is 400k profit in just under 5 minutes, and that works out to almost 5 million GP per hour. Now, I predicted Foresters rations on day 1 was going to make you a ton of money, and it was good money for the first hour or so. I made about 7 million GP, but it died a death afterwards, so I wanted to see if they're still profitable. Since now 1 shark and 1 magic leaf makes you 36 rations, it only costs you 20 GP each to make, and they sell for more than that, so it definitely had potential. Each one gives you 51 cooking XP too, which works out at around 94,000 XP per hour. They all sold for 195,000 after taking 6 minutes 33 seconds to make them all at a cost of 145k. That is only 461,000 GP per hour at 27 GP each, but they've just gone up to 35 GP, which over doubles the profit and would make this almost a mil per hour. Now whether they'll stay at that price, who knows, but if they do, it's not too bad and it's actually better money than sharks. After this point, the other items were a royal pain to buy, because people woodcutting want the best value for their anima, and presumably these don't give you the best return. Unlike the other items, they took hours to buy on the GE, and I had to change my offers multiple times, but if it makes enough money, I'm sure we could let it slide. I started buying powdered pollen at 62k each, but by the time I had 108, I was paying over 66k each. The secondary ingredients are cheap enough though, as you just need logs and balls of wool. Total cost of all of the supplies was 6.91 million. To make the bee on the stick, you've got to be near one of the hives in Camelot, which makes this method slower than the others. It may be fractionally quicker to use the teleport to Sears Bank and then run back, but the bank in Catherby is slightly nearer to the hive, so there really isn't much in it. You get 10 every time you make one, so I made 1,080, and this took double the amount of time that the others did, but that's okay, because they sold for 8.44 million GP, a profit of 1.53 million, making this one 10.8 million GP per hour. Although to be fair, the prices were going up when I was buying the items, so that's probably a couple of mil more than it should be. The last 2 items, Smoker Fuel and Crystal Charms, were the bane of my life, constantly having to take offers out, change the price and then put them back in, because as you can see by today's prices on the charms, the buy and sell offers on these new items varies by such a large amount, and making these ridiculous profits rely on you buying them at the best price. With the first items I went through, there's enough coming into the game that you can leave offers in overnight and you'll probably get a few hours worth of items, but these bought really slowly. Eventually, I did buy 118 Smoker Fuel because I'd completely lost count of changing my offers all the time, and the secondary ingredients of steel bar and leather for a total of 7.74 million. You get 37.5 smithing XP each one you make, which is the exact same XP as an Addy bar, but it's far more AFK, and it worked out to be 59,000 XP per hour. You would think people would pay good money for that, and this may even be one that I actually lost money on. But in fact, they sold for 8.76 million GP in just 4 minutes and 29 seconds. If you ignore the 3 hours of blood, sweat and tears that went into buying the actual items, and you could get them a bit quicker, you could in theory make 13.6 million GP as well as training smithing at a fairly good rate. So it just left crystal charms. That makes petal circlets. But I also noticed while I was buying the flowers, which are the secondary ingredient, that the price of those are going insane. All of them are pretty much worth at least 300 GP now, and I wondered if planting flowers and picking them up had become profitable. Running through the numbers, which I always do before actually testing a method and wasting my time, it seems you will make a profit. 1,000 seeds would cost you 600,000 GP, and on average you would get one white flower worth 450,000, two black flowers worth 124k each, and all of the other flowers would get you about another 300 to 350k. Now I do love you guys and I appreciate the support that you always give me, I really do, but if you think I'm planting some flowers for 5 hours to make 300,000 GP, you can kiss my mithril seeds themselves are also a bit of a money maker, now since they've gone up in price. They're around 700 GP each on the GE currently and cost just 300 GP, but the only shop that sells them is the one in the Legends Guild and it has a stock of just 6. Even still, I thought it was worth testing at least. The good part is they're stackable, so you can just keep hopping worlds and buying them over and over again. And I got 174 in 5 minutes. They all sold for 118,000, so after cost this method is 768,000 GP per hour. Not terrible. Finally it was the petal circlet, and I got most of the charms for 61,382 GP. But this method uses any 3 flowers, so they cost me another 900 GP each one that I made. 1,080 took 5 minutes 13 seconds and they sold for 6,989 GP each, which is a profit of around 9.3 million GP per hour. This is so much money right now because not many people are doing it, and if you all jump on it you'll probably crash it. But next time they release new items, try making them, because someone has been making 35 mil per hour for the last 3 months just by making nature's offerings.